Hi, my name is Kelly Suter with you at the beautiful Albertsons on Broadway, ready to share with you an exciting recipe, one that I'm passionate about that combines Peruvian cooking techniques with a very unique spice from Orchestra Provisions. Kate last year won the competition at Trailmix with these spices, and I gotta tell you, they're very unique, and I think that you'll see why here in a little bit. I've picked two out to share with you. One is a pico grillo seasoning. It's like a Mexican spice blend, think taco seasoning, but without all the bad stuff. And then Himalayan sea salt to add a little extra sodium. And I'm using it here, and you can also use it for any recipe that you might think needs that extra little sodium factor. But what's unique about these seasonings is that it uses crickets. It's a sustainable protein and a food source that's really unique, and I gotta tell you, they are delicious. And so what I'm gonna share with you today is a recipe, and it's a vegetarian burrito bowl. So it's really got a lot of produce. It's got cilantro, zucchini, tomatoes, onions, cabbage, tomatoes, and so on. And so it's gonna be basically really simple ingredients, but once they're together, it really ends up with some complex flavors, and it's really beautiful. And you know, the philosophy is that food does bring people together, so I'm going to serve this family style, and I suggest that you can do the same if you were to try it out. So let's go ahead and dive in and get started. And so the first thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna make a garnish. It's almost like a garnish salad. It's called Sarsa Creola, and it utilizes 4 simple ingredients: red onions, limes, cilantro, and then we're gonna use a little bit of that Himalayan sea salt. So I tell you what, let's go ahead and do this ahead of time, and I wanna make this now so it marinates just a little bit, so by the time the dish is plated, it'll be so flavorful with those ingredients melded together. So I'm gonna go ahead and move this out of the way, and the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna chop up 1 red onion. And so to do that, and there's many ways to cut a red onion, but I tell you, maybe I'm doing it right, maybe I'm doing it wrong, but this is the way I've done it for such a long time. We're gonna go ahead and take the ends off, and what I like to do is I like to just cut through that outer layer, and then I just basically pull the outside off with the knife. I want to avoid getting my nails in there, so to speak. So I'll just pull it off. Let's get rid of our onion paper. And the key to cutting this onion and the key to this Sarsa Creola is to cut as thin as you possibly can, because the lime and the salt is gonna break that down. So we're gonna just chop it right in half. And like I said, we are going for super, super thin slices. Beautiful little thin slices. Let's go ahead and put these right here in our bowl. And really, this is gonna be a garnish, but this could also be almost a side salad too. So if you wanted to throw a couple extra onions in there, save it for later, it's almost better after it sits for a few hours. So we'll go ahead and chop this guy up all the way, being very careful there at the end, right? So we'll go ahead and add these. And then, you know, the onions are just stuck together a little bit, so what we're gonna do is we're just gonna close our tongs so we don't damage the onions and loosen it up just a little bit. Beautiful so far. All right, next we are gonna add fresh lime juice. And the freshest you can get is basically right from the lime. So we'll start with just about, I would say for this quantity of onion, 3 limes, halved. Nice and easy. I got my little lime juicer hidden away over here. And like I said, this is almost best prepared maybe about an hour ahead of time. Other takes on Sarsa Creola would be to rinse the red onions prior to use, so you have that real clean, crisp onion flavor. All right, really coming together here. This is really gonna be dynamite. All right, and now I'm gonna add the cilantro. I've got a little bit pre-chopped here, and you know, this came from just right downstairs from Albertsons, as fresh as you can get. So I'm adding about 2 tablespoons worth of cilantro, and you can see this is coarsely chopped, meaning partial cuts of the leaves. And for the spotlight spice, this Himalayan sea salt, you can see it there, it's very fine, which is good because it'll disperse throughout the salad. So we're just gonna season that in there just a little bit, and I probably put in this about a half teaspoon. So the key to this is to thoroughly mix and let this sit. You really want that lime juice to permeate that red onion and start to break it down just a little bit. And this is gonna add a zing, a tang to your dish. It's gonna excite those taste buds of your family members or guests. So there we've got Sarsa Creola, beautiful. Now I'm gonna go ahead and just set this aside, and we're gonna move on. And so this dish has my take on Peruvian black beans. And unlike most chilies or other uses for black beans, I rinsed the black beans. And I know that, we've got to keep the beans in the juice when you use it. Not for Peruvian black beans. And so really, just 3 ingredients to this simple preparation of black beans. I am going to preheat this cast iron pan just a little bit. Now it does take a little bit longer for cast iron pans to heat, but once it's hot, it stays hot, so you really gotta watch that heat. So like I said, we've got just a few ingredients here. We've got vegetable stock, black beans, and then just a little bit of pre-chopped garlic. You can chop it yourself if that's something that you want to do, but it's raw garlic, and that is important. So let's go ahead here, move on over to our cast iron pan. And a good way to tell if this is hot is the viscosity of that oil. And this is something that we want to have the oil piping hot. We don't want to put garlic into a cold pan. So you can see it's warming up as we speak. I'm gonna go ahead and turn the heat up here a little bit. So, and what makes this Peruvian really is, a lot of red onion, a lot of garlic. We're gonna roast this garlic here in just a moment. So I'm gonna go ahead and open my little garlic thing that's very tight. So, and this dish serves, I would say maybe 4 people or so. So let's go ahead and add our garlic, about a tablespoon. You can hear a little sizzle there. I'm gonna go ahead and turn this up just a little bit. The best thing about these black beans is when you are cooking with garlic and it's starting to brown and that smell gets in the air, that is really what kind of makes me hungry. All right, little sizzle there. So when we're going to brown this garlic, now, you want to be careful not to get it, too dark brown. You want this just slightly brown. Go ahead and turn this up a little bit. This is really gonna come out very good. And so I have used just pre-chopped garlic, got it right downstairs. That is browning up nicely, filling the air. I know you can't smell it, I can smell it, it smells terrific. So I know you're sitting there thinking, okay, he's gonna add vegetable stock to unrinsed black beans. Why would he do this? Well, to me, vegetable broth or vegetable stock adds a great depth of flavor. It's really, boiled vegetables essentially reduced down to that, core core depth of flavor, which is exciting. And when you add that to rinsed black beans, you have very deep flavor there. So I would say we're getting pretty close on our garlic here. Let's go ahead and add our black beans. Like I said, I've got about 3 cans of black beans here. So I'm gonna go ahead, add those. You can hear the sizzle, just put this aside. Then I just really want to incorporate that garlic throughout. Gotcha, and all we're doing here is we're just warming this up. And whenever you're warming something that's pre-cooked, you do want to get it to boiling point. So we're gonna go ahead and add our vegetable stock here. I'm just gonna go ahead and turn our pan up a little bit. You can do this in a stock pot, you can do this in a saute pan. Perfect. And the amount of stock that you're adding is just up to the level of the black beans. Great. And then when this simmers just for a little while, that is really going. And this, kind of like the Sarsa Creola, is something that when it sits overnight or about 4 hours, you really have a great dish. You could actually put this right in the oven too. If you needed more stovetop space, it would probably take, I would say, maybe 30 minutes at 400. Of course, you would want to cover it so it wouldn't evaporate too much. Beautiful. And most of the time when you pick up a cast iron pan, it does come pre-seasoned. If you were to season it, it usually takes a little bit of oil and then in the oven for about an hour at 500 degrees. And it's a good idea to season your cast iron pan maybe after every 3 or 4 uses. Great, that's coming to a nice boil. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna pull this off, let this sit, and I will trade places because we've got something else that we need to cook. Great. All right, so we will let that sit there. I'll go ahead and turn this off and kind of clean up just a little bit. So the next part that we're gonna do is really the highlight of this dish, and that is roasted vegetables. And like I said, this is a vegetarian dish, so there really is a lot going on and a lot of vegetables. So let's go ahead and get started. And so I have picked a variety of vegetables, 1 to add color and 2 to add flavor. So let's go ahead and we're gonna start with 1 white onion and basically preparing it the same way that we did with our Sarsa Creola. So we're gonna take off the end here, cut first layer off, peel back with the knife, just like so, holding it down. We'll discard this paper, cut it right in half, and then we're gonna do 1/4-inch thick slices. Great. And with the variety of vegetables that we're using, you might find that they roast at different time periods. For me, it takes longer to roast or saute an onion than it does, say, bell pepper. So that's why we're gonna add this first. So we've got our onion prepared here. Put that to the side. Now we're going to add a yellow squash, just discarding the end. And what I like to do is I like to get these in bite-sized pieces. These have a high water content, so once they roast down a little bit, they'll shrink. And I'm just gonna cut these on a slight bias using the tip of my knife. You can see the color starting to come together already. And again, we're doing a little over 1/4 inch thick slices. I did have this long way. Great. We're gonna find our little green zucchini, taking off the end, taking off this end, just a little guy there at the end. I'm gonna go ahead and half this lengthwise. Same repetition. Great. We'll move this over so we have a little more room. Same story with this guy. You can see this one is a little bit wider, so we're getting some bigger pieces there in the middle. And I'm just gonna cut those right in half. Awesome. Now let's transition to our bell peppers. I did grab one of each color downstairs, except for the orange. And like the onion, now I know there are quite a few ways to cut a bell pepper. You can cut it how you like. This is how I do it. I take it right down the center, and then I peel out the stem using my thumb and knocking out the seeds. Let me go ahead and do it right here for you, just peeling it out. And for me, this method does not waste any of the bell pepper. So actually, I am gonna do these two so I can cut these all at once, right down the middle, taking my thumb, pulling out the stem, and knocking out the seeds. And repeat. You want to be right over a receptacle because these seeds do have a tendency to go everywhere, as you know. And you can see we've got some yellows, some greens, some reds. Beautiful, fresh bell peppers. Thumb to the stem, knocking out the seeds. Now, a lot of folks might take the excess flesh inside. You can certainly do that. A little bit there doesn't really bother me. That's really gonna cook away anyway. And so what I'm gonna do here is I'm going to cut these about the same width as our onions. And just so I can work with this just a little bit better, I'm gonna cut this in half and then just go right down the sides with our bell pepper. And you know, with this dish, it looks like we might even get away with just using half of each color versus the entire bell pepper. I can think of quite a few dishes that I can use the excess half of each color. Okay, I'm gonna quarter this one and then go right into it again. Now, remember earlier I talked about how warm our cast iron pan should be. Let's go over. I did heat this up just a little bit beforehand. Ooh, it's feeling nice and hot. So, just gonna add a little oil to this, warm our oil up. I'm using about 1 ounce of oil here. Now remember, our goal here is to saute these vegetables. Saute means to jump. And the key to this is we want the moisture in these vegetables to evaporate. We don't want to steam these vegetables. That'll add just too much moisture. We want the essence of that vegetable. And to saute those is really the only way to do that. Great, preserve my half. And then let's add our bread. Nice thin slices. Awesome. So those are ready to go. And then just for a little kick, I think I am going to add a little bit of jalapeno to this. So I am going to cut this lengthwise. And for me, I'm sorry, but I do love spice. So I'm gonna keep the seeds in there. I really enjoy the spice. I know what you're thinking. Kelly, don't touch your eyes or your face after this. I did try these, this batch earlier. They're not super spicy, so I'm not too concerned with these. I am going to cut little strips through here. I lied, I am gonna take some of the seeds out, but leaving some of them. Great. All right, and then we are going to mince these little guys. So I cut half of the jalapeno lengthwise, and then I've cut that half into little strips, and now I am just going to mince these little guys up. Now, the one thing about this pico grillo seasoning is that I was surprised at how spicy it was. And it's not spicy that it's gonna, send you running out of the house, but be prepared for it, which I was excited. I love spicy. Okay, great. So you can see that our oil is nice and hot. It's even smoking a little bit, which means let's go ahead and get our ingredients in there. So we are going to add our onions. Beautiful. Kind of getting them all over the base of the pan. Great. See, gonna knock that guy open there. All right, and I can tell just by looking at this guy, I need a scotch more oil, and that might mean half a teaspoon or so. All right. Let's go ahead, saute these bad boys up. All right, I'm gonna turn our temp down just a little bit, and I'm gonna add our other ingredients. Squash, zucchini, great, a little bit of bell pepper, doesn't that look beautiful? Great. And then let's add our jalapeno. And I think for that size of pan, I think that's a good amount of ingredients. Like I said, I didn't want to overload the pan. Now, the question is, when should I add the seasoning? You do not want to add the seasoning at the very beginning, because what it's gonna do is it's gonna clump up, it's gonna stick to the outside of the vegetables, and it could even burn. So you wanna wait until the vegetables just soften a little bit to add your seasoning. That way, the vegetables will absorb that seasoning and it'll cook out just a little bit better. And you do want to roast the seasoning just a little bit. Cooking it really opens up those spices and subsequently the flavor. Great. Now that is really coming along nicely. Super. Okay, and we'll let those roast for just a little bit. Super. Then of course, as we're waiting, go ahead and just take a moment and turn your Sarsa Creola. Great. I'm just gonna move these aside just a little bit. Now what I tend to do is if I have people over at my house for an event, if I have family, I find that I will end up cooking multiple batches of this, kind of refilling the dish, so to speak. Great. Now you can see those are starting to brown up just a little bit, soften up, which I think is a perfect time for the seasoning. Great. And like I said, this one is called pico grillo. It's a Mexican style seasoning. And it's very fine, which is great because that means it's gonna distribute very well throughout the vegetables. And for this amount, I am going to add about a tablespoon. Perfect. That smells tremendous. All right. Now what you want to be careful of too is spice sticking to the bottom of the pan, and because this is a Peruvian style, enter soy sauce. And we're just gonna deglaze the bottom of the pan just a little bit. Beautiful. Now you can really see it reducing in size. Very colorful. Let's make sure we get it equally distributed. Great. There we go. That is really coming along nicely. Now, I believe we have enough zing with our Sarsa Creola. One thing you might try is just a little bit of white vinegar in this to bring out the flavor of those onions. Great. That is just about where I want it. You can cook it longer if you would like, if you like your vegetables super soft. I like them just with like a little hint of crunch. Great. You're gonna see how beautiful this turns out to be. We're gonna go ahead and put this dish together. You see, it hasn't really taken me very long to do this. Great, so those are sizzling. And I did save a little time, and I did pre-cook some brown rice, and of course you can follow your packaging instructions for this. Brown rice takes a little bit longer than white rice. This takes about 40 to 50 minutes, but it's something you can just set on the stove, bring to a boil, reduce to a simmer, and then wait, and then let the stove do the rest. Super. All right, so I am gonna go ahead and start plating brown rice. Like I said, family style, so I'm gonna get a decent amount on here. And I wanna break this up into thirds, rice on one side, black beans on the other, and then our wonderful vegetable mixture in the middle. Super. I'm gonna come around here, grab our black beans. You can see the garlic in there. Great. Around. Turn our heat off here. Now I think for these, I'm going to use tongs. That really smells tremendous. Right there in the middle. Like a lot of veggies. Great. And now for the fun part, the garnishes. Of course, we have our beautiful Sarsa Creola here that I think from a color standpoint really contrasts well with the black beans. I'm gonna kind of ball this up a little bit, the size of a softball or so. And now remember, this is a deconstructed burrito, so we have the makings for a burrito. So I'm gonna do over here a little bit of cabbage. I am gonna do a little bit of tomato right here on the side. Got a little in the cabbage there, no big deal. A little And then I had grilled off scallion and whole jalapenos that I am just gonna lay right across there. We'll garnish with cilantro. And then finally, little cilantro dusting over the top. So, and there you have it, a deconstructed vegetarian burrito utilizing Orchestra Provisions spices.
I'm Molly, I'm your Albertsons local registered dietitian, and just really love how wonderfully this dish came together with lots of color and lots of produce full of nutrients. So Kelly picked some really awesome produce to showcase and blended those flavors together beautifully. So we've got lots of color, lots of texture, picking up the produce from our local store here, plus all of that local and fresh produce. It's gonna do so many great health benefits for us. So especially like this cabbage, which is a great prebiotic fiber for our gut microbiota. In addition to the fiber from the beans, our gut is gonna be so happy and healthy. So getting lots of fiber from this dish because it's mostly plants. And being plant-based or plant-forward doesn't have to be plants only. So this is a great way to kind of showcase that as we incorporated the Orchestra Provisions spices and then really had just a great spread from the veggies. Another great thing that Kelly added here as kind of a finishing touch for us was some avocado. Now I love adding avocados to any dish. It's gonna boost up that great just monounsaturated fat in addition to the olive oil that he used to saute the beans as well. So having the extra virgin olive oil and the avocados are a great way to add in monounsaturated fats, which is also gonna then really kind of grab onto all those vitamins and minerals in that awesome produce and help absorb it better. So especially vitamins like vitamin A, D, E, and K, they need a little bit of that awesome healthy fat to be absorbed into our bodies. So we always want to pair those together. And speaking of pairings, Kelly did a great job of pairing beans and rice together. I love that he chose brown rice. Again, more fiber, a whole grain, so we're getting more nutrients. But the beans and the rice are gonna be a complete protein, meaning we're getting all 9 essential amino acids that we need in this dish. So that's why it's a great option for doing a vegetarian meal. We don't have to add meat if we don't want to. If you've got meat eaters at home that are looking a little bit for that texture, Kelly also suggested that we could add mushrooms. And mushrooms are a great alternative if you're looking for some of that meat texture. They'll blend right in, and even if you don't have mushroom eaters at home, they're a great kind of texture addition, plus boosting up the nutrient of this dish. So all of these flavors and produce play together well in this dish, and they plate beautifully. And like Kelly said, we eat with our eyes, and good food should be enjoyed.
Thank you so much for joining me during Boise Startup Week. So excited to be with you. And of course, I did get all these ingredients here at the Albertsons on Broadway, but of course we do have these ingredients in an Albertsons near you. I hope to see you soon and have a great week.